My name is Laura Mina. I'm the head librarian at the Charleston Library Society. I am seeing a ton of faces here that I haven't seen before, which is a beautiful thing. We love to bring new people into the Library Society, and that was one of the objectives of this morning's event, was to really kind of fling our doors open wider and wider and wider and draw people here who had not been to the Library Society before. I can't tell you how many people say, oh, I've walked by it a million times. I didn't realize that this was a library. Or I've always wanted to go in there, but I just never have. It's kind of like when you live in New York and you're like, I've never been on the Staten Island ferry, but I should have, you know? So it's a little bit of stand-up from me today. I really have never ridden the Staten Island ferry, and it's free. I'm pleased to welcome all of you here for a very special event. And part of that special event is that I also, and I forgot to bring my prop, ask you to turn off your cell phones. I also really like to make a joke about ringtones because there's always one that we hear, like during the event. It's inevitable. The thing is, you just don't want it to be yours. And every time, it's always like, I've never heard that one before. Anyway, it does create great conversation afterwards, though. So through the generous funding and support of SC Humanities, we've been able to create the experience you will have with us today, from start to finish. We've funded, the SC Humanities funded us in order to be able to host with food, with what you also would hear in New York is called swag bags. And we wouldn't have that grant if it hadn't been for a woman who's in the audience today, Jennifer Comer. So we are very, very grateful for that. But in order to pull an event like today together as well, we have to have an incredible partner. And this has been a labor of love. It's in our inaugural year. So we've been building this as we've been flying. But Buxton Books is an instrumental partner to us for every single author event we ever host at the Library Society. So you're going to see two Buxtons in front of you today. Polly Buxton is going to be the ambassador. Yeah, the ambassador. And the sort of narrator and the question and answer person for the panel that you see up here. SC Humanities funded the biscuits we've gotten from Callie's Hot Little Biscuits and the highfalutin coffee we've gotten from Highfalutin Coffee. You should feel very special when you're drinking it. So we know that a thriving civilization is reflected in the vibrancy and the prolificness of the cultural contributions of that civilization's time. Charleston is a growing and thriving community, and these authors today are evidence of that. Each person here, including you, brings so much to our community. These authors on stage range from James Beard Award-winning cookbook authors and memoir writers to renowned fiction writers and local lore crafted about famous Charleston ghosts. We have people that write poetry here in front of you and people who write middle grade books, nurturing the young minds of today. So there's an incredible cross-section of the writing community, and understanding how wide that range is very important because it just shows how many talents are nurtured from the wellspring of this community. We're celebrating our 275th anniversary this year, and we've been the intellectual living room of the Low Country or Charleston for a very, very long time, as you can tell. We were founded by a group of young men, and over the years, we have had statesmen and founding fathers members here, but also, again, incredible literary contributors to the community, including DuBose Hayward. So that's a little bit of our story. So it's time to hear from these highly regarded storytellers on stage. And so this is that incredible moment where I pass the mic over to Polly Buxton, and she gets you all started to experience what you all have been waiting for. Last but not least, after the event, you could purchase more copies of books, and the authors will be signing at the back table. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I'm Polly again. Hello again. And I do want to take just a second and to say what an incredible privilege it is for Julian and I to have an independent bookstore right here in our hometown and to have it here on campus at the Charleston Library Society. I remember the day that we were asked to do that. And I sat in my car and I started crying. I didn't even realize it was something I wanted so much. It was such a realization of a dream. And it is still a dream with a lot of hard work. And it would not be true without all of the people in this room. That means the Charleston Library Society team, the board members who aren't here, the staff, the incredible staff that's here, the authors, the writers. I mean, we couldn't do it without you. The Buxton Books team, we've grown so much since my first event here. I showed up with a wagon and a square reader, and we've come a long way since then. We have an incredible team, so let's hear it for the booksellers. They're amazing. And the librarians, and the writers. And if you come to anything at the bookstore or here where I get a moment to be in conversation with you one-on-one or to present to you collectively, I always say you are the magic that makes the library and the bookstore work. We couldn't do it without you. You're the readers, and you've shown up. You're here today. So thank you. This is a bit of an experiment. It's an exciting one. We don't know exactly what's going to happen today, but we're going to not make it tonight. We only have a little bit of time, so we're not going to look at I've got things to do. So instead of reading, we're going to turn this upside down a little bit, and instead of reading bios, you can purchase their book and read their bio on the back flap. I think that's kind of boring. So instead, we are going to let them tell you just a couple of sentences, and I will say time if you're talking too much about yourself.
You're talking to me.
Yes. I told Julian that I was going to try to make sure that that I didn't try to speak for him, which is what I do in our marriage. He's the writer, I'm the talker. So Julian Buxton is the author of The Ghosts of Charleston. I have to read it off the cover.
Forgets it.
He teaches everyone who works at the bookstore to say that it is the finest piece of Charleston literature, no offense to any of you. That's a requisite to work with us. Julian, what would you like people to know about yourself?
Well, I would add to that the finest piece of literature ever written in Charleston.
Ever.
Anyone who wants to take that up with him?
Let's see. I'll piggyback on what Polly just said. I promise that I really have accomplished things on my own. Instead of giving you the litany of what they are, I say that because when I was growing up, I was always in the shadow of this very beloved surgeon. Some of y'all will know what I'm talking about, who was larger than life and still is. He died 20 years ago in a few days. And so anyway, that's the case. And now, I'm not just known as Dr. Julian Buxton's son. That's kind of faded. And now my identity is Polly Buxton's husband.
Yay!
I did take his name. He started crying when I told him I wasn't going to take his name when we got married 10 years ago. But I said, I kind of like the way Polly Buxton sounds.
I love it.
So happy. That's how you got Buxton Books, right?
But I promise I've achieved a few things in my life.
He absolutely has, and we wouldn't have the bookstore without this book. We wouldn't have the bookstore, literally would not have it without this book, but I would not be able to do anything I could do without Julian. He's an extraordinary partner in life and in the bookstore. So,
that's so nice. Guys!
this little saying, this little French girl looked at me one time. She told me that she wanted to swim in the pool, and she told me, she was like, "You're beautiful." And she goes, "C'est très belle, you're beautiful." And I said, "Oh, thank you." She goes, "Et c'est vrai en plus." She said, "And it's true." Very sweet. So anyway, it's true. C'est vrai en plus. Okay, The Girl Who Built a Spider, George Brewington. This has become a very big seller in our store since it has come out, published by Henry Holt. And George, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I moved to Charleston with my wife in 2015, and I've written short stories most of my life, but since we moved to Charleston, Charleston's become the backdrop of pretty much every story I've written since. And The Girl Who Built a Spider is my second novel. My first one's called The Monster Catchers, and it takes place in Charleston. It's got a lot of Folly Beach and James Island and the Citadel Mall and some other Charleston spots in it. So, yeah, that's it.
And what a cute cover! I'm gonna tell you, I think it doesn't hurt that it's such an adorable cover.
I can take no credit for the cover, and I'm so lucky to have the illustration, because I think that sells it more than anything else.
People judge a book by the cover. They really do.
Yes, they do.
But it's a fun, really wonderful young reader's book, and it's so cool that it's set here in Charleston. It really is neat.
Great, thank you.
That's good. Lydia Fitzpatrick Davis. Lydia, nationally known author. We first met Lydia when she came for her book event here, when your book tour. Yeah. And we didn't even have lights in the bookstore. Do you remember?
Yeah, you're stealing my story.
I know. It was so fun. It was the first time I got to be in conversation with an author. And I can't imagine anyone better than to have been in conversation with Lydia, because she is brilliant and lovely, and you're just an amazing person, and you have since moved to Charleston. So that's why we get to call you
in large
local.
part thanks to Polly. Her powers range wide. Anyway, yeah, I'm Lydia Fitzpatrick. My first novel, Lights All Night Long, came out from Penguin Press in 2019. And I actually just turned in my second novel a week ago to Penguin Press. So fingers crossed. Yeah. I'm waiting, you turn it in and you feel really euphoric for about an hour, and then you start waiting for the letter back with everything the editor doesn't like about the book. So I'm in that sort of limbo. So it's great to be here today and distract myself with your company, yeah. And Lights All Night Long is set half in Louisiana and half in Russia. And then the novel I just turned in is set in Princeton. I'm a fellow Princetonian. Julian and I both went there and majored in history. And it's set there in the 60s. So it's the post-Cold War era. And my mom actually went to Princeton before it was co-ed, because she spoke Russian, which was a critical language during the Cold War. So it's loosely based on her story of being there as one of 5 girls. Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Pretty cool
very
story.
impressive.
This is
yours, 'cause I
a
can't.
fantastic
Oh, you've got one. I've got
book,
one.
by the way. Really, really
The Britney
great
Spears.
read.
Yeah.
Victoria. Victoria Benton Frank. My Magnolia Summer. I think you were the top. My Magnolia Summer in August. When did this publish?
June 6th.
June 6th. Well, in the month of August, it was the #1 seller at Buxton Books. And people just keep coming for more. We had Victoria, after she had done multiple events, up and down in the region. Victoria has was it a Saturday or Sunday? I can't remember. Anyway, I think it was a Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
And you were doing a signing, and we kind of expected people to trickle in. There was a line out the door.
So nice.
People, including booksellers and our team, we have fallen in love with Victoria. We got to know her because of her mother.
It's mutual. I love you guys too.
But today, I keep saying tonight. I want it to be evening.
I do too.
We can have wine. Victoria, tell us a little bit about you that you would like everyone to know.
It's so hard to start that. Like, here's my life story. And I'm like so not, I always have imposter syndrome because I am not as accomplished as like Princeton or like any of that. I have no business being here, but people like to hear me run my mouth, so it's working out well for me. I went to the College of Charleston. I majored in theater performance, which should be a huge surprise for everyone. And then I went to culinary school in New York, and I fell in love with the food scene. So I've always been a storyteller in some way. First it was on stage. It's still on stage, turns out. My father likes to tell everyone that he wasted a lot of money with that theater degree, and I use that sucker every day. But I did not go to a fancy school about writing. I studied theater, but I studied stories. And so that led me, obviously, I know a little bit about being under the shadow of somebody, although my mom kind of just turned her spotlight, which was amazing. And my mother, who was Dorothea Benton Frank, who's a very well-known author in Charleston, she told me how to do it. And so she dared me, and I did, and here I am.
We're glad.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's a dream. It's a dream.
It's so fun. I mean, look at this panel up here. I can't believe we have seven. Everyone kept telling me, 7's too many. I said, who would you cut? I'm not cutting. Certainly not my husband.
Oh no.
Yeah, that would be the one.
Yvette Murray. Yvette has been since the beginning, you have supported Buxton Books and the writing community here in Charleston. You, exceptional human being and an award-winning poet. Hush Puppy, out from Finishing Line Press. I don't know how much you know about poetry publications, but it's actually quite hard to be a published poet. And I always encourage poets to publish themselves if they need to, because really you can make a chapbook pretty easily, and people want to take something with them. Yvette is published by Finishing Line Press, very respected poetry publication, so congratulations on that. That is no small accomplishment. Yvette, tell us a little bit about yourself, but I also just want to put a big plug in here. If you get a chance to hear Yvette read her poetry out loud, it's amazing. So it is, that's really the spoken word, and you do have quite a few opportunities. I don't know if there's anything coming up you can share with us, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to first of all wish the Library Society happy anniversary for 275 years of keeping our history. And that's what Hush Puppy does, keeps our history, the history of these neighborhoods. I am a local Charlestonian, which makes me a unicorn. Any other Benyas in here? Here we go. Well, Benya, come ya, welcome. So that makes me a bit of a unicorn. And I too have the story of, I grew up in downtown Charleston. So I too have the story of walking past this building and for 18 years, never came in it because, you know, we used to hang out on the Battery back in my day. And from where I live, you just walk down King Street, you go hang out, all your friends are there. But I never came into this building, but I am so glad to be in this building now, so glad to be here today with all of you. And Hush Puppy is about history of our neighborhoods, because if you guys that have been here, you know the vibrant, beautiful, wonderful neighborhoods and communities that we had. And I think it's important that we keep telling those stories about the grocery store on the corner and the old man that used to fix shoes. It's very important that we continue to hold on to our history and tell it loud. So thank you.
Kristen Ness. Kristen Ness is very beloved, has become very quickly a beloved author by the Charleston community and beyond. Her book At Loggerheads, her novel At Loggerheads, was published by Evening Post Books this past year. And Kristen Ness is, she has a very full life outside of being a writer and author, but you might not know it because she comes to every event. She's the hardest working author I know.
I love being around Buxton and the Charleston Library Society. I do sort of lurk.
Well, lurking sounds.
Well, I mean, I write
lurking
murder
sounds maybe very
mysteries, so you know, I
exciting,
get my
actually.
dark stories somewhere.
Kristen is just really, you have, I don't know if you want to tell them a little bit about your life outside of writing this book, because we'll get a little bit more to your writing process later.
Sure. So again, thank you, Buxton and Charleston Library Society and South Carolina Humanities. I'm so honored to be here. I grew up mostly in South Carolina, and I wear several hats. I grew up loving writing, first of all, but I'm going to take you on down to the beach, because my book is about sea turtles and murder. And there's some politics and an odd combination, and what those have to do with each other, and a little bit of a love story in there too. So it's a mixed genre on a fictional South Carolina barrier island. I grew up mostly in South Carolina. I'm on the Island Turtle team, which is a team of volunteers out on Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island. We protect the turtles out there. You might have seen the nests. And I'm also, somehow by accident, an attorney. So I went to law school along the way, and sort of fine-tuned my writing, I guess, is maybe what I got out of it, but I practice immigration law as well. So a few different passions, a few different hats, a couple young children thrown in there, and yes, busy life going on. But I love to write, and I'm so happy to be here and to have my book out this summer. It came out in May.
With all due respect to lawyers, when I heard she was a lawyer, I just didn't really pay that much attention. Because a lot of lawyers like to write books. But I think of immigration attorney, I think that is so fascinating. What a powerful, important work that you do.
It is something that had really interested me from the start for the same reason. Very complex law, a way to help people, and something that, especially these days, we hear a lot about, and people need a lot of help with it. So.
Well, my mother says that doers do. If you need something done, ask someone who is already really busy. And I think Kristen falls into that. She is a mother. She is an immigration attorney, and she writes a book. And she comes to almost every event that we have. So there might be more than one. There might be more than one Kristen out there.
The triplets.
There might be. Never know. Doppelganger.
Speaking of somebody who has more than one person who gets mistaken for you, Matt Lee. And so, Matt, I have known you before I had a bookstore, which is very cool. And I remember, I think I first met you at a photo shoot for Hominy Grill. Does that make sense? Did you write an article about Hominy Grill, or am I mistaking you?
It's entirely possible.
Yeah, I think it was you.
Ted has the actual memory, and I'm just,
right.
custodian of him.
You're the personality? That's great.
No, not that either, but I write the checks.
Good.
Good.
I'll
It's important.
befriend you.
We need that. Yeah.
So the featured book we're looking at is this memoir, Hot Box, which is super cool. And I actually did not think I was interested in reading this book. And then I started reading it, and I could not put it down, and have gifted it to many people. This is a fascinating read. It's very, very cool. But you're really known for your cookbooks. James Beard award-winning cookbook. And my sister, who's the big foodie in our family, I went to McClellanville. She drove in from Hillsborough, North Carolina, for her birthday yesterday, and she had a stack of 3 cookbooks to be there for the weekend, and she had your Charleston cookbook with her. So she has cookbook will travel. It's a good reference point.
That's sweet. Well, thank you. And is this necessary, or did you? It's not necessary.
It's not necessary? Oh.
Right.
Oh, yes.
I have a lapel, I guess. Thank you so much, Polly. It's always a pleasure being with you in every respect, and the Charleston Library Society. It's always fun to be on the stage and to talk Charleston, which is inevitably the subject. So yeah, my brother and I collaborate. That's unusual compared to y'all, that, we write every other word or every other paragraph, and it's just that much easier, and you get to split the big bonus checks and stuff like that, right? But we are not, I didn't raise my hand as a binya because we come ya. My parents, my parents moved down in the 1970s, though. But you know, for the most part, I grew up here most of my life, and so compared to, you know, y'all, I know a lot. I know a lot of binyas, and I remember what it was like growing up downtown in the 1980s, and that was definitely a different era than we're in now. And my brother and I have never owned a restaurant, and we came to cookbook writing, we always say, because when you grew up in downtown Charleston or in the Low Country in that period, you couldn't avoid it. You became a home cook of great proficiency. And whether you were a man or a woman, boy or girl, like you were folded into the daily food life of the Low Country in a very visceral way that left a deep impression on you. People knew a lot about horticulture and about the life cycle of fishes and crustaceans, and people did hunting and people cultivated gardens, and you just inevitably, by the time you turned 20 and went to some far-flung place, you knew more than the people in your rooming group did about how to eat, and the ingredients especially. And it just, it felt natural to us. It was part of play. You walked down to the pilot boat dock and, you know, someone had a shrimp net or a chicken leg from the Piggly Wiggly and a piece of string, and suddenly, you know, that was sport to us, but that's a sophisticated, that's like 3 recipes we could write if we had to, and we could tell 10 stories. We have to edit them down. Yeah. So writing cookbooks came easy to us, but it wasn't from the perspective of restaurant, and that actually turned out to be very important because restaurant chefs can't write cookbooks for the most part. The audience is y'all and not restaurant chefs. So I won't go on.
I think that's why Catherine travels with your cookbook, because your recipes work.
Well, yeah, and there's 2 of us to wrestle with them. So anyhow, that's how we got into it. And Hot Box is, I'd say, correct you, it's not a memoir. It's an expose. Yeah. We went undercover for 6 years in catering in New York City, where catering is different from the rest of the world because it's higher stakes. It's like $2,000 a plate situations, and the conditions are worse than everywhere else. There's no kitchen. You can't back up a box truck into the parking lot here with a propane-powered oven on it. You have to move everything in through 19th century elevators into places where flames are not allowed.
Limits
high expectations. You know, we want like warm, crisp, beautiful restaurant quality food in the Temple of Dendur in the Metropolitan Museum. How do you do that? You have to tie one hand behind your back and not use a flame. How do you do it? So we figured it out. So.
Well, I was not going to get to this question till later, but I'm going to ask you the more in-depth question now. And it's just, so you kind of already alluded to it. So, but which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like this, the writing or the...
Boiled peanuts came first, yes. You know, the thing that propelled us into food was actually, we just didn't start with cookbooks, but we embarked on a kind of performance art project to prove that boiled peanuts could be made in New York City. We were up there after college, and Ted was working in publishing as a lowly assistant, and I was interviewing at Christie's and Sotheby's because I studied art history, and you know how far that went. And we were just upset that you couldn't get boiled peanuts in the middle of February in New York City, and set out to prove that it was possible, and in so doing kind of fantasized about like hitting it rich with boiled peanuts in New York City. And of course that didn't pan out at all, but we proved that we could sucker New York City editors into assigning stories about what we were doing. And that proved to be, June 1st, 1994, Florence Fabricant, who still writes for the New York Times, wrote a little thing about boiled peanuts available by mail order and published our 168 Ludlow Street tenement landline in there, and it lit up that morning, and that got us into this kind of food order catalog, mail order food catalog of Southern specialties, like everything we found at the Piggly Wiggly #1 on Meeting Street, Duke's Mayonnaise. Do you remember Harold's Cabin? Yeah. Okay, we were basically knocking off Harold's Cabin. Cheese straws, Harris she crab soup in a can, Cheerwine soda, Duke's Mayonnaise, all those things. And there was an audience out there of expatriate Southerners, nationwide, for the most part, who were willing to step up and pay, 10 times the price at the Piggly Wiggly, plus shipping, $16 a quart for their Duke's Mayonnaise in Seattle, Washington. Totally made sense to people for about 2 decades. That's kind of tapered off since. But that was how we attracted the attention of editors who wanted, like Maria Guarnaschelli at Norton, who thought, for some reason, that we might be able to produce a cookbook out of that kind of material.
I remember hearing that and just loving the concept of anybody who was willing to pay $30 plus shipping for this small thing of boiled peanuts was serving them at a really fancy party.
No,
yeah.
They weren't.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, it's such a good story. I love it. Julian.
Yes.
Hi.
Yikes. What's next?
This is a local writer. This is the moniker that we've put, and I think that of everyone here, probably you and Yvette are the ones who actually uniquely write, or so far publish something that has been set here, right? That is really, really tied to the Low Country and to Charleston. What does that mean to you to be called a local writer? Positive, negative? What do you think about it?
On the negative side, but I want to say why. I like that I'm from Charleston. I love that. It's so much a part of who I am. But I think that every writer, no matter what they're writing, wants to be read. So a local writer kind of sounds inhibiting or in a cage almost. So it's a limited term, I think. But on the idea that I am a local writer is very true. But I also Charleston has a huge sense of place, and it's just a powerful place for anybody that comes here, but certainly growing up. So so much so that I could not write about it when I was younger. So I went over to California and I was able to write about it there. And then I was able to come back, and it's called The Ghost of Charleston. I say this in the introduction, that really the way that I came to be interested in that is that Charleston haunted me while I was gone for 8 years away from here. More than that if you include college. So, because I had such a strong sense of place. So I had to go out and then come back, and then I was able to write about Charleston. So basically, I love being a local writer, but I don't necessarily like being called that.
I'm thinking about how, as booksellers, how we've struggled with this. When we first started Buxton Books over on Cumberland Street, we found it to do this, to do pop-ups and to support events motivated to help bring authors here so we could have conversations like this. But we focused almost uniquely on local writers, and either you had to be from here, or the setting had to be here, or for, if it was nonfiction, it had to be about the Low Country. And obviously, when we moved to, or not obviously, but when we moved to King Street, to 160 King Street, we became a full-service bookstore because Charleston and the community, because you asked for it. You wanted not only to hear local writers, but writers from all over the country. I think that everyone up here on the stage is a writer who happens to live locally, which is usually the way that I describe you
right.
all when some of your books are set here, more than, and parts of your books are set here, but you happen to live locally. But I do think you have a bigger audience than that. Makes me want to go to Lydia, because Lydia, I don't know.
I might be the
Lydia
least
goes,
local.
why am I here?
mean, I think it's a huge compliment. I was so excited to be invited to join. I've only been in Charleston for 3 years, so I am not a local by anyone's definition of local. But I love
taxes.
the place.
You
I pay taxes.
so you're
that's
local.
True. Yeah. I pay taxes, and I moved here because I became obsessed with the Charleston literary scene. I met Polly and Julian. We had a party in Buxton Books when it was just boxes. There was no electricity. It was great.
It was hot and dark.
Yeah, and I thought, this city is amazing, and it has this kind of depth and passion for books, and I just was captivated. So I moved here during COVID and had a really lonely writing year out on Wadmalaw, and now live in the Old Village. And the Old Village feels really ripe for a novel. So I have not actually ever written a novel set in the place I live, but I think that's going to change soon.
Cool. Oh, that's so interesting. I grew up in the Old Village, and Lydia lives a half a block from where my parents live. So it's very, I get to ride by your house and wave.
Yeah. I wave at your parents. They don't know who I am, but I'm like,
they're the old holdouts. I always say my family moved to the Old Village before it was chic. People knock on their door and think, you must be selling soon. Maybe it's true one day. They're in their 90s, so it's coming. But it is such a rich environment, and it still is. I mean, rich in that rich in love, kind of way. That way that Josephine Humphreys wrote about the Old Village, and that was. Her novel Rich in Love, which has always been one of my favorites, and if you haven't read Rich in Love by Josephine Humphreys, read it. You should. It's wonderful.
You can watch the movie too.
Oh no! And the movie was filmed right next door to my parents' house, and it was really. And my mom has a cameo dressed as a witch. We are the witches of the Old Village for Halloween. If you want to go, hundreds of kids trick or treating the Old Village. Okay, we're digressing here. But Lydia, you wrote your novel and it published before you moved here.
yes. Yeah.
And so, how has living here locally? And I agree with you. I think it's an honor. Charlestonians are very stingy. We're very stingy with the word local. Are you local? I mean, I was accidentally born in New Orleans. My family's been here for hundreds of years, for all that means. And my own family says, "Well, you weren't born here." But I had a lot of roots here, deep roots here. But I think it's such an honor. We like to also claim people. You notice who we call locals. They spent a little bit of time here in college, and if they're famous enough, we'll say, "Well, he's kind of ours. He's ours." It's. How does
Dude, I'm happy to be claimed. I would love that.
It's very cool. Do you think it's changed your writing to be here in the Low Country in this?
Yeah, I think Charleston and COVID, being totally honest, changed my writing. I got so much done. I feel like life just slowed way down. So I feel like I wrote the bulk of the novel out on Wadmalaw. I started kind of brewing another one, which is set in the Low Country, but will probably take me 7 years like the other two. So don't hold your breath for it. But no, I'm so excited and flattered to be claimed in any way, shape, or form. And I think for me, when I write about a place, I think it's really important actually to come at it with a level of objectivity and familiarity. I think finding that balance can be pretty crucial, and it's part of how I build a character. So I think that's part of why I haven't yet written something from a place that where I grew up, which is Virginia, and New Orleans. But I look forward to trying to bring that to Charleston. And when I do write about Charleston, I'll probably write about it from an outsider's perspective, because I feel like that's what I've earned, and I think that's also nice to be aligned with your character in that way. So I think in fiction I have that option. You can choose how close your character is to his or her setting. It gives you the ability to render it in a really different way.
I love that. Because I do think that having read your novel more than once, since we were in conversation, I read it more than once. But the power, that sense of place, really comes through. The locations, the setting, is its own character.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how books start for me. I don't know about you all, but I was out, I walk a ton all around the old village. I think everybody there thinks I'm nuts, but if I hit a wall, I just go out and walk for a couple miles and then come back and do it again. And there's this sound, and I've never heard it before. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with it, but out in the marsh, and there's this popping sound like something in grease, like that you just plunked in grease. And I was like, what is that sound? And it's got to be like gases releasing in the mud or something. But it's just like, this will find its way at some point into a book. And
Oysters and fiddler crabs.
Yeah, crabs.
Are they breathing? Or
What's happening?
Well, Yvette, talk about the power of place. It comes through so powerfully in your poetry. So, again, just to go back to your poetry being read out loud is just amazing. But it really does translate to the page. It's really beautifully done, and that's not true for all poetry. But I think my question that I wanted to ask you for the audience was, did you have an early experience where you first recognized the power of words? Or the power?
Well, my mother was a school teacher, and I don't know if there are any school teachers, former school teachers, so So there were books everywhere in my house, and we used to have days, remember when we were growing up and there'd be a thunderstorm every afternoon and we had to turn the lights off. So what do? You have to turn the lights off and open the door so the lightning can go through. But, and you have to be quiet. But, what do? You read. So I always grew up reading encyclopedias. My mom used to get me to correct the papers for her students. So there was a lot of reading going on. I went to college up north. I went to Pittsburgh. And when my intention to show us Southerners as we are started then, because I think these people think I came from, 1867, because they were like, do you have stoplights? Do you have? Yeah. I'm like, I live in a city. What is wrong with you? And they think everything is the country. And now you do know that around here you can make the wrong turn in certain places and you will end up in the country. Dirt roads, you might see a chicken or two. Your
GPS gives out there too.
Exactly. It's really easy to do, but there is so much more to us as Southerners, and it's important to portray that. Yes, our history is a little dicey, but right along with that dicey part, there's beauty, there's neighbors, there's love, there's all of that right there with it. And I think it's hard for people to understand that. Understand the love of history and the separation from history and the real history. There are neighborhoods and areas where people live together, the formerly enslaved and the former slavers. There are neighborhoods where people that did not necessarily agree, but the era of terror lynchings was a scary place. And so they did what they could to help and to assist and to heal. So I think it's important for all of us to tell the whole story. There's so much more to us, and I just think they need to know it. And all of that is rooted in this place right here. 40% of the Africans that were brought to North America to be enslaved came here, right close by. So this is the place to tell the story. This is the place that the story is about. And it's the place to tell the whole story. I think we deserve that.
Well, that needed to be said. Leave it to Yvette. She's good with words. That's why she's here. That's why she does what she does. We kind of have this little phrase, books connect us, and I think that is just so powerfully true. Every single one of your books. Yvette, I really think that poetry is such an extraordinary thing because this phrase of telling the whole story is something that we're all saying now. We hear it said, and we hear people hearing the whole story, and it's so fascinating. You know that we made this very conscious decision at Buxton Books to sell new books, especially by living writers, so that we would contribute. When you purchase books today, or you purchase books at the bookstore, or even if you sign up for a list, if you request a book here at the library, they will know that they need to purchase a copy for their circulation. This is how you contribute to the ecosystem of publishing. That's how the publishers decide what they want to do. So books connect us in that way, but that concept of the whole story, right? I think in poetry it's so interesting because it's often fewer words, right?
Yes.
But there's this depth and breadth to what you are saying that does incorporate the whole story. But that also happens in fiction and nonfiction, that there's more to it than the words that are on the page. I'm rambling. But the whole story, can we ever tell the whole story? It's like this evolving, ongoing thing that we're doing, but it's such a powerful thing that we should to keep hearing and to keep embracing the whole story. There's so much more than just the words that are on the page. I think about that with your poetry. It's so powerful, and sometimes the most simple thing, or in fiction tells a greater truth sometimes than nonfiction, right? It's the story, there's so much more going on there. It's when you have to close the book and go, oh, I gotta, you just listen to a part of the story, and it's so specific about a character or a place, but you close it because it resonates with you in this other way, or poetry that it resonates. It's such a powerful thing that you all do. I'm in awe of it all the time. George Brewington, can you tell us, when did you get to Charleston? Are you a commie or a Benya?
I'm definitely recent, 2015.
Okay. Oh, wow. Super recent.
Super recent.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome for calling you a logo. I'm just kidding.
You're in.
We're glad you're here. We're glad you're setting these books in Charleston. So did you immediately begin setting them in Charleston?
I did. As soon as we got here, we live on Folly Beach, and it is just lush. I just love everything about it. The beach and egrets and dolphins and ghosts. You're just surrounded by all these wonderful things that are just it's just ripe for kids' stories. And the first short story, this one wasn't a kid's story. I published a short story called The Boo Hag. Oh man, so much fun to write about. There's a lot of great ghost stories that I just want to steal and write into kids' adventures. I got to talk to Julian more about this, but the ghost of Pugin, for Pugin's Porch, I think that's just ripe for a story about a ghost dog that kids would love. So I think that's been mulling in my brain for a while.
We could sell that book.
I'm working on it.
That's amazing. How did you decide? I know that you've had 2 young reader books, right? So
yes.
What's the age group that you were writing for?
8 to 11.
8 to 11. They're really, I don't know about you all, but if you ever read, do you know how many YA readers are not young adults? Do you know? And how many, and these stories, they're so sweet. I mean, they're really fun and captivating, and you can read them kind of in a sitting, I think. I think that's pretty phenomenal.
That's kind of the idea. I mean, I try to write for reluctant readers. That's why adventure stories are so fun, and I love it when kids come up to me at schools and I'm like, I read your book, and I usually hate books, so this is great. That feels like a victory. And so I try to write short chapters that with a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter to keep you going, and I love it when I hear some kid that normally hates books read my book in a night. That's so awesome.
Well, we use that as a selling tool when people are looking for something to gift, and it's so easy to put your
That's
book
cool.
in their hands. But it's so are you thinking when you talk about Pugins, like doing something with a ghost story? No one steal that. Authors are not really supposed to be telling you their ideas. They're going to be 7 books about it.
Julian already wrote a short story
And a
about it, so I'm
poem.
just stealing
Yeah,
it.
it's in the poetry collection.
7 books and a poem and a cookbook.
Yes.
Yeah, it's but there are so many amazing ideas out there. But how do you decide which story you're going to write?
Oh man, I don't decide. It just is whatever is the one that sticks in my brain. I try to get up early. I fail many times, so I try to get up early and write, and whatever comes out, comes out. I don't feel like I have any control over that. So I just, whatever.
So this is something I actually want to ask everyone, but what is your writing process? Are you regimented?
I try to be. I do best when I get up at 5, and that's when I'm the most alert, when I have, before my kids are up and I've got time to myself to write, that's when the best stuff comes out. But it's not easy. I mean, there's definitely times where I open up my laptop and just stare at it and then shut it an hour later. And I'm very depressed. But when I'm in the zone at that time, then I feel like, okay, this is working well. I got to keep doing this. I got to make sure tomorrow I get up and keep writing.
Do you have seasons where you write? So you're dedicated and you're kind of on deadline for yourself or for a publisher, or do you always write?
A deadline definitely helps. Deadline is motivating.
It's motivating.
But no, I don't really have seasons. I try to do it just every morning. I think that I hate routine, but I think I work best with routine. So if I can make myself do that, then even if I just write a few paragraphs a day, eventually the book gets written. But it's definitely a struggle sometimes.
What time do your kids get up?
Luckily
You're up at
they're
5. What if they're up at
These are
6:30?
Yeah.
Hey,
My 4-year-old gets up at 6 usually, so I maybe get an hour.
Okay. Mine are up at 5:30, so that's
That's
great.
So Victoria, so kind of just interject a quick
No.
rapid fire in here. Who do you write every day, and if so, at what time and where?
I write every single day, and I get up and get my kids to school and kick them out of my house, and then get them, recover from that trauma of getting them to school, and then I have a coffee, and then I sit at my desk and I answer emails, and I don't get anything done until about noon, and then my best writing happens from like noon to 3 o'clock, and I don't move except to go to the bathroom and let my dog out. That's it, and that's right, yeah. And I have to be regimented. I am motivated by a deadline and the pressure and my children's addiction to Disney World.
It's expensive.
Yeah. Gotta write.
Those little children are expensive.
Freaking kids.
I'm going to come back because I have lots more to ask you about. But Kristen, quick, your writing style. Do you do it every day?
I am not regimented. I am go with the flow when I'm in a creative mood. So I have more creative periods than not. I usually have to get out of my house, and I love to go to local coffee shops and find a spot and sit down, and usually I can get through a full chapter or write until I'm finished or until I have to go do something else and get my kids at school or something. But I have actual memories too of this book, certain chapters where I wrote them. I can remember where I was when I wrote it because I move around a little bit. So I like to be on the go. And I'm definitely a night owl. So I'm a night person. So if I'm finishing something I'm writing or if I'm really into it and I can't stay away, I stay up really late.
Amazing. So fun. I know Julian moves around. He has the same thing. He has stories. He has a story for where he wrote the story.
Oh yeah.
Yes, like that.
I have an amazing memory.
Do you write every day, or do you?
I try to write something every day, but not really. As our team knows, because I talk about this a lot, but building a bookstore for the last 8 years has been kryptonite to my writing. So it's. I would like to get back to that, and we're actually got such a strong team right now that I believe that relatively soon I'll be able to start doing what I like to do, which is a fairly regular in the morning writing and seeing what happens every morning, and then maybe the muse will show up.
Lydia, where do you write? Every day?
I write every day. I find shame to be a really good motivator, so I have this.
Take that burning around. Take that
Shame
burning
works,
around.
yeah.
Catholic, I don't know. I have this big calendar over my desk, and if I don't hit 1,000 words a day, I put a giant red X on it. And so I can see, my whole family can see, my kids now know it. It's called the calendar of shame, so I'm sure they'll be in there.
This is how you go to Princeton. People who go to Princeton, this is what motivates them.
You know, at the end of the month, there's like
That
a
would
visual
probably work with my brother.
representation of whether I met my expectations or
Oh my
not.
gosh.
And, now that would make it seem like I'm really type A, but I'm actually kind of a slovenly person. So I write in bed, and I go do my X at the end of the day if I haven't written my 1,000 words while in bed. So I get the kids out the door in my pajamas.
Yeah.
I go get back in bed with my microwave coffee, which I microwave like 30 times during the day, and it
Yep.
just gets grosser and grosser.
Yep.
And I sit there and I try not to fall asleep.
Yep.
And I write 1,000 words. Sometimes I walk. You know, if it's going really badly, the more you see me out, the worse
In
it's
her
going.
pajamas.
And then I feel like I see Jessica in the pickup line at school, and I'm like possibly still in my pajamas, even though it's 3, because I've just been sitting in the bed in like an alternate universe. But hopefully I got the 1,000 words.
That was a lot of information, Julie.
Now you know everything there is to know about me.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yvette?
By nature, I like to write early in the morning. I like to 5 o'clock, 4:35, I get up, stay in that trance state, don't really wake up, turn on the laptop, and then word vomit. Just whatever I'm thinking about, normally something's spinning around in my head somewhere, so I'll just, and then when I go back to look at it, there's usually a draft or something I've been working on that's in there. So that's my nature. However, I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter who lives with me. So right now, I write when she sleeps. Because, you know, there'll be a little person. I'm one of these people, God bless you all, who can go in a bookstore and read. I need, don't call me, don't talk to me, turn off the TV. I won't want to hear anything except what I'm doing. So that's the way that I write. I did try really hard one time in a coffee shop, and I kept, you know, people kept going by, and I'm looking, and so, but I do try to do that just to be different, but I like to go in a room, and I'll go in the library, downtown library. There's a great spot. If you go upstairs in the back, people don't come back there. So I turn my back to where the stairs are, and it's like I'm all by myself. So it's great. It's quiet. That's incredible. Matt?
Yeah, I guess I've got one. The Lee brothers write at least 2,000 or 3,000 words a day, and it's usually in the form of finely crafted email responses to requests for what do you think of my book proposal and stuff like that. And so we warm up with that, and then by about 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the afternoon, if there's a deadline, we will, you know, hit a glass of white wine, and then for the next 45 minutes, we've got like the muse descends, and then by dinner time, it's too hungry. There's too many things to do in that kitchen, and the second glass of wine is hit, and it's all over. And so you've got this tiny little window. We've got a lot of warm up, and then
That sweet spot.
window
around
is sweet
3
spot.
o'clock
And
after-
so, needless
Panic
to say, and that, but I should say that that was before I
3 o'clock
had
is me
kids.
too.
And I've got 3 kids, the eldest of whom is 14. And so now, you know, it's even harder because the door closes at 3 p.m. and it's pick up and driving and dinner and bath and bed all before like 7 p.m. Then I'm tired and have to go to bed at 7:30. And so, yeah, Our pattern used to be a cookbook every 6 years, and now it's like every 6 decades.
We're waiting.
And my brother's even worse, and he has no kids. I don't know what's going on, but Twitter also cut into our productivity.
Well, it's actually really it's actually an interesting concept, is that we're so connected now that people have so much access to you, right? I mean, this is, it used to be, this was the only way you would get access to anyone, and now there's so much with social media and emails and websites, and you can get in touch with
Reels and TikTok, BookTok, and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. It's not going away. But how do you navigate that?
Well, when I say Twitter, I mean not publishing on Twitter, not tweeting or even communicating or responding to someone. It's just that whereas in the olden days the New York Times would land there and we'd devour it over 10 cups of coffee in the morning. Now, throughout the day, if you have the hunger to surveil all of your peers and your colleagues and consume what's happening in the world, you can do it 24 hours a day and still feel like you're getting fed new material, right? And so, except for like 4 in the morning till 6 in the morning, no one's doing anything for some reason, as I found out this morning. And, but yeah, so you can just, if you kind of hunger for that hit of like new news, like you can be there kind of waiting for it to happen on multiple platforms all day long. And so Ted is really unproductive these days. But he's well informed.
Yes.
Very well informed.
This is almost circling back to your chicken or the egg question, that you are doing these, you're a farmer now.
There's a lot to say about me, but we don't need to talk about that today.
No,
I don't think so. Okay. If it comes up naturally.
If it comes up naturally, which it just did. So.
Well, you are a natural, that's true.
Yes, but you plant heirloom grains. Is there a book in that? Okay, so this is, I'm going to quote, we just mentioned, this is the second time we're going to mention Josephine Humphrey's husband, so we'll let him just, he said that you are planting these heirloom grains, and you are also, he believes, growing a book.
Yes.
He thinks it's a great story.
I'm content farming.
You're content farming.
Yes, well, and so as a COVID project and adjacent to what we do with live events and helping the Department of Agriculture program their stage at Seawee every year, which we've done for many years, I decided it would be a good idea to help Farmer Tom, who has a 45-acre old tomato field. The Schaffer and Hay family did tomatoes out there for 50 years, and they stopped doing that in the early 2000s, and he wanted a tenant farmer. And by the end of that summer, I realized that I should be the tenant farmer because besides buttering up the Department of Agriculture, Ted and I had just finished this deep dive on how everything you didn't know about catering. And so the idea that everything you didn't know about farming could be a possible future subject. But it turns out it's more a deep dive on men in midlife crisis and their relationship with elderly men, which is really weird. There's a lot of unpacking how elderly men behave and how they pack their containers full of stuff, and their alternating great, abundant generosity. Of course, help yourself to all my tools, but there are hard limits to that generosity, and find them fairly quickly.
Sounds like you and Farmer Tom need to go to counseling.
The consequences of not returning the tool in a timely fashion to exactly the right place in the cluttered barn are grave. You might lose access to the please help yourself to a beer in the fridge. Do not take that at face value. You are not to help yourself. Those beers are not.
How about his muscadine wine that's all lined up there?
He's currently in winemaking mode, but listen, I have not been offered a free bottle of that wine in now 3 years.
I didn't mean to dig into your...
Well, you've uncorked a wellspring of stories, but I'm going to save them for the book, I guess.
I'm getting nervous about time because I don't want to.
Yeah.
We could, any one of you, we could be up here for this entire time, and I want to make sure we.
I've taken too much time. I'll leave the stage.
I keep coming back to. I want to hear more because we want more stories from all of you. Kristen, tell me about turtles. Why turtles? Except that turtles, you put a turtle on the cover of a book, it sells. So no,
That's why.
the story
That's
is
why.
incredible, and your book is continually selling so well.
Wonderful.
And we love having it, and we recommend it all the time. But tell us what happened. Was it the writing that came first, or the turtles, or?
It was definitely my love for all things sea creatures, but the sea turtle in particular. I think because that sea creature comes on shore, so we can actually see it, the female sea turtle. A lot of the other sea creatures we don't know as much about, and I hope to get to those in later books, but for the cover, that's a sea turtle hatchling. It's a loggerhead hatchling. And I was very much hoping that it would draw you into the moonlight sea turtle hatchlings when they come out of their nests. They follow the reflection of the moonlight on the ocean. That's how they find their way to the ocean, from their nest across the sand. And that's why if you've heard the campaign Lights Out for Turtles, when you've come to a beach where they're nesting turtles, it's because they don't want the hatchlings to get turned around and get lost inland. So I was hoping, first of all, to bring a reader to the book by wondering, what is this little sea turtle doing? And it's a little bit scary and also mysterious. It is a murder mystery. But the sea turtles fascinated me from the start. It was one of the first things I did when I moved to Charleston, was join the sea turtle team, and I've been on it for 10 years, and I won the Rookie of the Year, first year, because I found the most nests. So exciting, but they're a great group of women who run that turtle team out there. And the sea turtle I wanted to hopefully bring into the story. My main character is a sea turtle biologist, and I hoped that the reader would be absorbed in the story, trying to figure out the mystery. There's a little bit of a love story. There's a presidential campaign going on that might be impacted by what they're finding out. But learning about the turtle while reading the story, that was kind of my purpose and hope. Like Yvette was saying so beautifully about the power of story. I was hoping to use that power of story not only to draw people into the place, because I also agree that a sense of place and setting almost becomes another character, especially when you're writing about nature. The power of story to make people care, to teach them about the sea turtles, to paint this beautiful place for them to see and hopefully imagine for themselves, so that if they care about nature and they care about the sea turtles, they'll hopefully want to protect nature and the sea turtles. And I was lucky enough to win tickets to see Jane Goodall a few nights ago when she was here. They had this raffle where you could enter your story about your pet, and so I told them about my pet Lefty, the cat who came to our house. He's a community cat, showed up on our front porch with a paw that was hurt, and we fed him, and now he's our cat. He's been with us for 2 years. But you had to submit that story to get your name in the running, and then they chose the winner with their cat. Jane the cat chose the winner in this video. They said, I had no idea they were going to do this, where the cat puts her paw on one of the little folded up papers and pulls it across the carpet. Wow. And it was my name. So it wasn't your name. It wasn't your name. So I got chosen by Jane the cat.
Chosen by the cat.
To go see Jane Goodall.
Anointed by the
She
female.
was also speaking about the power of story and how by telling her stories about the chimpanzees she loved so much in Gombe, she could spread the word about protecting them and get people to care about nature. And I was hoping to do a similar thing for sea creatures in the environment, and sea turtles in particular.
Well, you've done it. Well done. When did you know you were going to add murder into your...
Well, that was the vehicle, right? I wanted to have a little bit of a mystery in there, a murder mystery in particular, so that the reader would have a puzzle to solve. I've always liked to read in that genre, thriller, suspense, mystery. I thought that would be an interesting combination, and hopefully get the reader involved in the story, trying to figure out what's going on, and you meet all these small town characters in my fictional island. while they're almost accidentally learning about the turtles through my main character. So kind of sneaking the turtle facts in there so you're not being hit with a bunch of narrative and information, and it just organically, you learn about it by following the mystery and hopefully not figuring it out until the end.
Last but not least, to ask a very more powerful question to is Victoria. And full disclosure, I've become great friends with Victoria, and I wasn't really expecting that much. I don't know why, but we have a lot of authors, and Victoria's just an incredible human.
Oh,
and,
gosh. Thank you.
What is it like to, again, I'm hesitating to say this because you are your own person and writer in your own right, but you, Becky and I had breakfast with you one day, and you talked about how your mother had built this mountain, and now you're building your own thing on top of the mountain. And can you tell us just a little bit about what it's like, what a powerful thing it has been? I've watched you on tour, and people coming to you and connecting, people who knew your mother, but then they're discovering you. I'm not really sure there's a question in that. I'm just asking you to elaborate more.
I think, first of all, growing up as Dot Frank's daughter was a freaking blast. It was a celebration every single day. And I think as a Southerner, first of all, before I even answer that question, sitting on the stage has been so surreal. Like, to hear everybody braid their experience of storytelling and kind of how we're all from Charleston, we're all local-ish. You are now because you pay taxes. Especially if you vote, then we definitely, we can talk about that later. Yeah, even over a cocktail would be even better. Anyway, okay, great. I think that a sense of place is sort of what binds stories. That's your first initial character. And being my mother's daughter and going into this industry, I had a place. I just had to step up and take it. And so it wasn't, I was lucky and blessed and honored, and I really mean those things. Like, I think the word to describe the entire thing is I'm so, so grateful for my chance to do it. But she carved this spot out for me and said, go get it. And she told me that every day, and I didn't think I could do it. And she, like I said, it was a dare. She sat down, she said, write a book you want to read. So I did. And it turned into this incredible opportunity. Yes, I'm a writer. Yes, I get to tell the stories, but what comes out of that is so important because stories connect us. They connect me to my land. My family's been in Charleston for 200 plus years, but I'm learning connections with other people. And I think that's the beauty of being a writer, and having any kind of level of success means your audience gets bigger, so it's a bigger opportunity to connect with people and share stories and learn about people. And that's where I get my inspiration for the next books. I have like 50 books in my head right now, but they're all about, most of them right now are stories that I've heard from y'all, like, on social media. And we were talking about how do you balance that? I don't sleep. I'm on social media when I'm not writing and chasing a child to school and all that. I don't sleep. I'm up pretty much, I sleep probably 4 hours a night, but otherwise I'm connecting and I'm building and I'm learning. Mama built the mountain and I'm building the castle on top. It's together.
Cool.
But I think also, like, when we were talking about Southerners, right? And I think everyone wants to be Southern. And I think what makes us great about being Southern is that we're not afraid to talk about our hearts and lineage and heritage and all the preserving our stories, whether they be dicey or not. Those are important. That's an important part of the story, but it's not the whole story. So my mom started her little empire, right? That's not the whole story. There's still stories left to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So true. Okay, I'm getting so many signals. I'm putting a blinder on that I'm supposed to be doing time.
Okay.
So these are truly rapid fire, right? So I'm going to ask you a question.
That's not going to happen.
No, we're not. That's not gonna. Julian's like, that's not gonna happen.
I'm inviting you to stay and continue the conversation afterwards. And please, we're so glad you're all here. But rapid fire. Okay. What book is on your nightstand right now that you're reading? He has a stack that he's reading.
Yeah.
What are you reading?
You know better than I do. What is it?
He's reading Mark Nepo's falling down and getting
That's
up.
true.
Okay.
That's it.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
That's your answer.
I usually have 5 on my bedside table.
Yeah, and he's reading it out loud to me, which is very sweet.
Oh.
George.
I am rereading Dune, and the reason I'm rereading Dune is because it's awesome and because I've got this idea for a sprawling Star Wars-esque novel. It's really huge in my head. I don't know if I can shrink it down to an actual manageable project, but I want to try, and Dune I think is the best.
So George writes science fiction and fantasy stuff on top of, or before that, so you're...
Yeah, when science fiction is in my head,
Is it going to be for young readers or adults?
young readers. A young reader's version of Dune, that's my...
Oh, that's very cool.
Cool.
Okay, we want to read that.
Cutting for Stone. I finished The Covenant of
Which
Water.
one?
Cutting for Stone. I finished
Yeah.
The Covenant of Water, and I was so sad that I didn't have it in my life anymore, so I just went and got
I
Cutting for
actually
Stone.
want to get together and talk about Covenant of Water.
Yes.
Anybody who's decided to take it
My
on,
husband
it's
was like,
amazing.
how many people can die in one book that you're sobbing every single night?
Yeah,
It was
so good, so good.
It's
I've got
amazing.
the lapel. I got the Britney Spears hookup over here. Mother-daughter murder night, and I love it. And I got really drunk the other night and got on my Instagram and started raving about how much I like it. And so mother-daughter murder night, it's amazing. And the author responded and then reposted it. And one of my things was like, cheers, bitches, I love this book. Huge hit, now we're friends. It's a fabulous book, y'all should read it.
The Listening Skin by Glennis Redmond.
I have 2 because I'm usually reading a couple books at a time. One is actually My Magnolia Summer.
Girl!
So I started that, and then I'm also reading Whale Fall, which is this
Oh, I
awesome
have that book on my-
fiction.
yes!
Daniel Krauss.
Got it from this
okay,
one
so
over
Whale
here.
Fall is what that
Yep.
term means is when a whale dies in the ocean.
And
It
it-
falls to the bottom of the ocean.
It's
and
beautiful.
It becomes part of the ecosystem again. But this in particular is a little bit of a suspense novel about a scuba diver who is swallowed by a sperm whale. And it takes place while his tank is running out of air. And it's quick chapters, and you see how much air is left in each chapter, interspersed with memories of his father, because he's in the ocean looking for what happened to his father when this happens. And
I don't know what
intense.
we don't
I'm in
have
the middle
Whale
of
Fall
it,
back
but
there. No, it's
very good.
Good Lord, is that fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction.
Okay, thank you.
Although I hear sometimes
So anything
a
can
lot.
happen.
I prefer nonfiction, and so I'm always exploring a series of different histories and things. And one that I'd love to call out that's on my bedside, and I'm just beginning, is called, it was published in the 80s. Everyone should dig into it. Lemon Swamp and Other Places, Mamie Garvin Fields. It's a memoir about what it was like to grow up on James Island and downtown.
Oh, cool.
In Gullah Geechee, Salabree, James Island, but also Lemon Swamp is a place of retreat that the family had in the middle part of the state, where they could retreat from social pressures and terror and seasonally and everything like that. It was really fascinating. Charleston history that doesn't get told or explored a lot. And I wonder if y'all have collections of sort of great underappreciated Charleston area books. I know some. There's the Beachcomber's Guide to, picking up fossils on the beaches here that I love giving it to newcomers.
Well, I was going to ask that question, but you guys are so bad at rapid fire. Y'all are terrible at rapid fire.
Pretty fast for writers.
That was good. That was good.
I disqualified.
That was good.
You're the only one who
Title, author, done. Yeah.
True.
Give that woman a tote bag.
We're long-winded. Well, you didn't have
Terrible.
short story writers up here. You had novelists, and we're running our mouths.
One word answer, paperback or hardcover?
What?
What, do you like paperback or hardcover?
It was a one-word
That's your
answer.
What? Okay, George.
Hardcover. I thought you were asking about a title.
Do you like hardcovers or paperbacks? Or you don't care?
It could be either.
Is this a boring question? Are these boring questions?
Hardcover.
Hardcover.
Both. I like hardcover for special ones and then paperbacks for regular ones.
Hardcover.
Hardcover.
Do you write computer or longhand?
Computer.
Computer.
Laptop, yeah.
Yeah, computer.
Computer.
laptop, but I always am scrolling notes on the side.
Longhand and then edit to the computer.
I watch him do longhand. I was going to say, is he going to tell the truth? Plotter or pantser?
What?
I hate that question.
You know what you're going to have to tell.
Boxers or briefs?
Yeah.
You cut it out or you fly by the seat of your pants when you're
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm a plotter, but I inevitably leave the plot and start pantsing.
Pantser.
Plotter.
Panther.
I've heard it said compass or map.
Oh, that's
I like to say
Ooh.
compass.
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 Compass. Oh, good. Oh, we switched. So now y'all can't. Too late. Y'all guys, you didn't have that. This is too hard of one, but our booksellers love this one. If there's going to be a Hollywood biopic of your life, who'd play you? Does anybody have an answer? Who would you want to play you? Oh, Victoria. Surprise! She's thought of this one before.
A few people. People who are thin and beautiful.
Yeah, as a bookseller, I want someone really thin.
Drew Barrymore, I think, should play. I think Drew Barrymore would play.
Good answer. Anyone else?
I thought about it.
Told Andy McDowell. I love
Oh, yeah.
She's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Jill Scott or Angela Bassett?
Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett's such a badass. Yeah, she's
I've
so.
got no clue.
You've got no clue?
I don't remember the actor's name, but he played Max Fisher in Rushmore.
Oh.
Do you know?
I don't know.
So
I'd
he's
have to buy
probably
him.
cool.
He's cool and nerdy and like wrong in many ways. You know?
Oh, amazing.
Jason Schwartzman, is that it?
Jason
Jason
Schwartzman, thank you.
Schwartzman. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you, George.
Jason Schwartzman.
I've been told I look like Mike Myers, so I'm going to go with Mike Myers.
It's the eyebrows.
It's the
Like,
eyebrows.
yeah, brilliant there, yeah.
Who else is not known for his movies, but he's made 2 or 3?
John Lithgow.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't like that.
I don't like that.
How about a younger version, though?
That only happened when my hair started receding. But people say that. Bruce Springsteen. Who else?
Bruce Springsteen.
Bruce Springsteen.
I'm a Jersey girl, so
Amazing.
yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Is writing, did you find it energizing or exhausting to write?
What? She talks too fast.
What do you know?
Start on this side. Come to-
Energizing or exhausting? Exhausting.
Energizing.
Energizing.
Both.
Energizing.
It's energizing.
Energized.
I guess I was wrong.
That's amazing. Oh my God, I think we're done.
You did such a good job. You must be exhausted. For a viewer of performance.
Bravo to the Library Society. Thank you to the South Carolina Humanities. I don't know what you call it, but what's up? SC Humanities. Tell it again. SC Humanities for sponsoring this, because we are not a discount bookstore. I always have to tell people, yes, you have to pay the suggested retail price on the cover.
You better.
Yes, you have to. Let's
What?
put the value back
No.
in the book. And the book
Yeah, no,
But
Polly.
we will give away books
Yeah.
when we get sponsored. So-
2 book